The space around Earth changed without any warning on Tuesday morning. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on the International Space Station when he saw something impossible appear outside his window. A ship made of crystal and light suddenly existed where empty space had been just moments before. The ship did not look like anything humans had ever built or imagined. Its surface moved like liquid, but stayed solid, like glass. Strange patterns of energy danced across its hull in colors that hurt to look at directly. Jake dropped his coffee pouch and reached for the communication system. His hands shook as he tried to contact Mission Control in Houston. The ship was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than the space station, and it seemed to bend the stars around it. Jake had been in space for 6 months and thought he had seen everything the universe could show him. He was wrong. Down on Earth, Dr. Lisa Bennett was starting another normal day at the Geneva Contact Center. She worked as the world's leading expert on what aliens might be like if humans ever met them. For 20 years, she had written papers and given talks about first contact protocols. She never thought she would actually need to use them. Her phone rang at exactly 9 in the morning with a call that would change everything forever. The voice on the phone belonged to the United Nations Secretary General. He spoke in short, quick sentences that made Lisa's heart race. An alien ship had appeared above Earth. They were trying to make contact. They needed her expertise immediately. Lisa grabbed her emergency bag and ran to the waiting helicopter outside, her office building. While Lisa flew toward the UN headquarters in New York, something even more strange was happening. Radio telescopes around the world were picking up a signal that should not exist. The signal was not coming from the alien ship. It was coming from everywhere at once, as if the entire solar system had become one giant radio transmitter. The message was simple and repeated in every human language at the same time. The message said, "We are the Kethvar, and we have been watching your species for a very long time. You have reached a point in your development where we must decide if you are ready to join the greater community of intelligent life in this galaxy. We come in peace to test your worthiness. Do not be afraid. We will meet with your leaders soon." The alien ship began to change shape as the message played. Parts of its crystal structure folded inward while other sections grew outward. It was building something, but no human could guess what. Military leaders around the world watched their radar screens as the ship created what looked like a smaller version of itself. This smaller ship broke away from the main vessel and began moving toward Earth. Jake Morrison watched the small ship pass by the space station on its way to the planet below. Up close, he could see that it was not really a ship at all, but more like a living thing made of metal and energy. Strange symbols glowed along its sides in patterns that seemed to change every time he looked at them. The ship moved without any visible engines or rockets. It simply glided through space as if the laws of physics did not apply to it. By the time Lisa arrived at the UN building, crowds of people had gathered in the streets. Everyone was looking up at the sky, waiting to see the alien visitors. News. Helicopters filled the air while reporters tried to get the best view of the landing site that had been prepared on the roof of the UN building. Security teams from every major country worked together to keep the area safe. The alien ship landed without making any sound. It touched down on the roof as gently as a feather falling on water. For several minutes, nothing happened. The ship sat there like a beautiful sculpture, while the world watched and waited. Then a door opened in the side of the ship, though no one had seen any door there before. 3 beings stepped out of the ship and onto the roof of the UN building. They were tall and thin, much taller than humans, with skin that shifted between silver and blue depending on how the light hit them. Their faces were almost human, but not quite right. Their eyes were too large and too bright. Their movements were too smooth and graceful. They wore no clothing, but their skin seemed to have patterns built into it that moved and changed like living tattoos. The being in front carried a device that looked like a simple black rectangle, no bigger than a human cell phone. But when it touched the device, the air above it filled with images of stars and planets and galaxies spinning in 3 dimensions. The holographic display showed the entire known universe as if it were a map that could be folded up and put in someone's pocket. Ambassador Zeftal was the name of their leader, though the sound of it came out in harmonics that human vocal cords could never make. He spoke perfect English, but his voice had layers of sound that suggested he had more than one set of vocal cords. His words were clear and precise, chosen carefully like a diplomat who had practiced this speech many times. He told the assembled human leaders that the HFY were an ancient race that had been watching younger species develop across the galaxy for millions of years. They were part of something called the Galactic Consortium, a group of advanced civilizations that shared knowledge and technology across the stars. When a species reached a certain level of development, the consortium would decide if they were ready to join the larger community of intelligent life. Humanity had reached that level, Zeftal explained. Humans had split the atom, traveled to their moon, and begun to understand the basic forces that governed the universe. But technology alone was not enough. A species also had to prove that they could understand and improve upon the most advanced technologies in the galaxy. This would be humanity's test. The alien ambassador reached into his ship and brought out 3 devices that would determine the future of the human race. The 3 devices that Ambassador Zeftal placed on the table looked nothing like human technology. The first device was a cube made of what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with internal light. Zeftal called it a quantum field manipulator, a tool that could change matter at the level of individual atoms. The second device looked like a sphere covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. This was a consciousness transfer system that could copy and store human minds, like files on a computer. The third device resembled a flower made of metal petals that moved constantly, never quite settling into the same position twice. This was a faster-than-light communication array that could send messages instantly across the entire galaxy. Zeftal explained that these 3 technologies represented the pinnacle of HFY science, developed over millions of years of careful research and testing. Each device was perfect in its design and function. They had never been improved or modified, because there was no need to improve perfection. The test for humanity was simple. If human scientists could understand even the basic principles behind these devices within 24 hours, Earth would be invited to join the Galactic Consortium. Dr. Lisa Bennett stood with a team of the world's 8 greatest scientists as they examined the alien artifacts. Professor Kevin Park from MIT ran his hands over the crystal cube, while Dr. Maria Santos from Brazil studied the metal flower with instruments that beeped and clicked as they took measurements. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, a former military engineer who now worked for NASA, crouched down to look at the sphere from different angles, her mechanical background giving her a different perspective than the theoretical physicists around her. The HFY delegation expected the humans to form a small, careful research team that would spend months studying each device in secret laboratories. Instead, something completely unexpected happened. Within hours of the first news reports, the entire human internet exploded with interest in the alien technology. Kevin Park decided to live stream his examination of the quantum field manipulator on social media, and millions of people around the world tuned in to watch. Comments flooded in from viewers everywhere. Graduate students in physics, amateur inventors. In their garages, retired engineers, high school science teachers, and curious teenagers all began offering theories and suggestions. Maria Santos set up a website where anyone could upload their ideas about how the devices might work. Amy Rodriguez started a forum where people could share pictures they had drawn of the alien technology, trying to figure out how the parts might fit together. The HFY watched this chaos with growing confusion. On their homeworld, only the most educated and experienced scientists were allowed to study important technology. The idea that millions of untrained minds would be focused on their most advanced devices seemed like madness. Ambassador Zeftal began to worry that humanity was not taking the test seriously enough, but something interesting was happening in all that chaos. A pattern began to emerge from the millions of human voices discussing the alien technology. People were not just trying to understand how the devices worked. They were trying to figure out how to make them work better. Amy Rodriguez was the first to notice something important about the crystal cube. She posted a message on the forum that would change everything. Amy wrote that the crystal cube was not just storing energy like the aliens thought. The patterns of light moving through the crystal were creating feedback loops that amplified the energy output. She suggested that, if someone changed the frequency of the crystal vibrations, the device might become much more powerful. Her background as a mechanic who worked on jet engines gave her an understanding of resonance and harmonic frequencies that the theoretical physicists had missed. Dr. Kevin Park read Amy's suggestion during his live stream and decided to test it immediately. He found the controls for the crystal cube and began adjusting the frequency settings. The crystal began to pulse faster and brighter. The energy readings on his instruments jumped to levels that should have been impossible. The quantum field manipulator was now operating at 300% of its original capacity. Meanwhile, in a coffee shop in Seattle, a computer programmer named Alex Johnson was watching the live stream while working on his laptop. Alex had been following the discussion about the consciousness transfer device and realized that the aliens were using very old-fashioned data compression techniques. He posted a blog article explaining that the device was treating human minds like single large files, instead of breaking them down into smaller, more efficient packets of information that could be processed in parallel. Alex's blog post caught the attention of Dr. Chen Williams, a materials scientist who had been studying the metal flower communication device. Chen realized that Alex's ideas about parallel processing could be applied to the communication array as well. Instead of sending one message at a time across the galaxy, the device could send thousands of messages simultaneously by breaking them into smaller pieces and sending each piece through a different quantum pathway. The modifications that the humans were making to the alien technology were not small improvements. They were fundamental changes that multiplied the capabilities of each device by orders of magnitude. The Kethvar delegation watched in amazement as their sacred artifacts were stripped down, analyzed, modified, and rebuilt by a species they had expected to barely understand the basic principles. But the real breakthrough came on the third day when a 16-year-old high school student in Canada made a discovery that would shock the entire galaxy. Danny Chen had been following all the online discussions about the alien devices from his bedroom computer. Unlike the adult scientists who were focused on understanding each device separately, Danny was looking for connections between all three technologies. Danny realized that the three devices were not meant to be separate tools at all. They were components of a larger system that the Kethvar had never thought to combine. The quantum field manipulator could create microscopic wormholes. The consciousness transfer device could send information through those wormholes. The communication array could control and coordinate the entire process. When all three devices worked together, they created something that was far greater than the sum of their parts. Danny built his own versions of the alien devices using 3D printed parts and components he ordered online. His homemade system looked like junk compared to the elegant alien originals, but when he turned it on, something incredible happened. His prototype could teleport objects, communicate across dimensions, and process information faster than any computer on Earth. The aliens had given humanity three perfect devices and expected them to struggle with understanding even one. Instead, humans had improved all three devices and then combined them into something the Kethvar had never imagined possible. Danny Chen uploaded his video to the internet at 3 a.m. on the fourth day of the alien visit. The teenager from Vancouver had been working in his garage for 72 hours straight, surviving on energy drinks and determination. His parents thought he was just playing with another computer project, but Danny was actually rebuilding alien technology with parts he had bought at the local electronics store and components he had 3D printed on his desktop machine. The video showed Danny standing in front of a workbench covered with what looked like electronic junk. Cables and circuit boards were held together with tape and hot glue. Pieces of the alien crystal had been mounted inside old computer cases. The metal flower petals had been replaced with antenna arrays made from coat hangers and aluminum foil. The whole system looked like something a mad scientist would build in a movie about garage inventors. But when Danny turned on his homemade alien technology, the garage around him began to shimmer and bend. A small metal wrench on his workbench suddenly disappeared and reappeared on a shelf across the room. Danny grinned at the camera and explained what he had discovered in simple words that anyone could understand. The three alien devices were not separate tools, Danny said. They were parts of one big machine that the aliens had never put together. The quantum field manipulator could punch tiny holes through space and time. The consciousness transfer device could send information through those holes. The communication array could control where the holes opened up and what information went through them. When all three devices worked together, they created a system that could move anything anywhere instantly. Within minutes of Danny posting his video, downloads began flooding in from every country on Earth. The video was translated into dozens of languages and shared on every social media platform. Scientists, engineers, students, and curious amateurs all began trying to replicate Danny's work. The teenager had not just improved alien technology, he had made it accessible to anyone with basic electronic skills and an internet connection. Dr. Maria Santos was in her laboratory in São Paulo when she saw Danny's video. Maria had been working on the communication array for 3 days, trying to understand how it sent messages faster than light. She had made the device more efficient and increased its bandwidth, but she had been thinking of it as just a communication tool. Danny's video made her realize that she had been looking at the problem all wrong. Maria gathered her team and began modifying the communication array based on Danny's discoveries. If the device could send information through microscopic wormholes, then it was not really a communication system at all. It was a portal generator. Maria's modifications turned the elegant alien flower into something that could open doorways between any 2 points in space, allowing instant travel and communication across unlimited distances. But Maria did not stop there. She realized that if the system could open doorways through space, it might also be able to open doorways through time. Her team began working around the clock to test this theory, and within hours they had succeeded in sending simple messages backwards through time by a few seconds. The implications were staggering. Meanwhile, Amy Rodriguez had been brought to NASA headquarters to work on the quantum field manipulator with a team of the world's best engineers. Amy's mechanical intuition had already improved the device beyond what the aliens thought possible, but she was just getting started. Working with NASA's resources, Amy began building larger and more powerful versions of the crystal cube. Amy discovered that the quantum field manipulator was not limited to changing individual atoms. It could alter the fundamental rules that governed how matter and energy behaved. By adjusting the resonance frequencies and adding feedback loops, Amy created a device that could make materials stronger than diamond, generate unlimited clean energy, and even create new forms of matter that had never existed before. The most dramatic breakthrough came when Amy combined her work with Danny's discoveries. The teenager's garage-built portal system had given Amy an idea about how to use quantum field manipulation on a much larger scale. Instead of just changing matter, Amy began experimenting with changing the space that matter existed in. Dr. Kevin Park was coordinating the global research effort from MIT when the reports began flooding in from research teams around the world. The consciousness transfer device, which the aliens had designed to back up and restore individual minds, had been turned into something far more powerful by human modifications. Teams in Japan, Germany, and Australia had found ways to link multiple human minds together while preserving individual personalities and memories. These linked minds could solve problems that individual humans could never handle alone. A group of mathematicians in Tokyo had connected their consciousness through the modified alien device and solved several mathematical problems that had puzzled humanity for centuries. A team of doctors in Berlin had used the system to share their knowledge and experience instantly, allowing them to diagnose rare diseases in minutes instead of months. But the most impressive demonstration came from a group of students at a high school in Ohio. They had built their own version of the consciousness transfer system using Danny's open-source plans and connected the minds of their entire science class. The group mind that resulted was able to understand complex scientific concepts that graduate students struggled with and began making original discoveries about physics and chemistry. The HFY delegation watched these developments with growing alarm. Ambassador Zeftal called emergency meetings with his science officers to try to understand what was happening. The humans had not just understood their technology in the required 24 hours. They had completely revolutionized it in ways that the HFY had never imagined possible. Science officer Kavrin reported that the human modifications had increased the power output of all three devices by factors of thousands or even millions. The humans were using the alien technology to do things that violated everything the HFY thought they knew about physics. Worse, the humans were sharing their discoveries freely with anyone who wanted to learn, creating an exponential explosion of technological advancement that showed no signs of slowing down. Ambassador Zeftel realized that the Kethvar had made a terrible mistake. They had expected to test humanity with their most advanced technology, confident that even the brightest human minds would need months or years to understand the basic principles. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to leapfrog millions of years of technological development in just a few days. The ambassador requested an immediate communication with the Kethvar homeworld to report what was happening on Earth. But when he tried to use their quantum communication system, he discovered that the humans had already hacked into the Kethvar network, not maliciously, but simply because they were curious about how well their improvements actually worked. The human-modified communication array was now so powerful that it could access quantum networks across the entire galaxy. Danny Chen, working from his garage in Canada, was suddenly in communication with alien civilizations that the Kethvar had never even heard of. The teenager was cheerfully sharing his technological discoveries with species from thousands of different worlds, sparking a galactic revolution that would change the course of history forever. Dr. Lisa Bennett found Ambassador Zeftel standing alone on the roof of the United Nations building, staring up at the stars with an expression that she had learned to recognize as deep confusion mixed with something that might have been fear. The alien diplomat had requested this private meeting after his science officers reported that human modifications to Kethvar technology had spread throughout the galaxy in just 5 days. Lisa approached carefully, not wanting to startle the tall alien whose silver-blue skin had taken on a more permanent gray tint over the past week. Zeftel turned to face her, his large eyes reflecting the city lights below in patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that Lisa had not heard before, suggesting emotional states that human vocal cords could never express. Zeftel told Lisa that the Kethvar were an ancient civilization that had perfected their technology over millions of years through careful, methodical research. Every device they created was tested extensively before being approved for use. Safety and reliability were more important than innovation. When they developed a tool that worked perfectly, they preserved it exactly as it was, ensuring that future generations would inherit the same flawless technology. Lisa nodded, beginning to understand the fundamental difference between human and Kethvar approaches to technology. She explained that humans worked differently, driven by curiosity rather than caution. When humans found something that worked perfectly, their first instinct was to take it apart and see if they could make it work even better. Failure was not something to be avoided, but something to learn from. Humans iterated, experimented, and improved constantly, never satisfied with perfection when better was possible. Around the world, this human approach was creating results that amazed even the people involved in the research. Amy Rodriguez had moved from her garage in Detroit to a NASA facility, where she was teaching quantum physicists how to feel the harmonic resonances in alien crystals. Her intuitive understanding of mechanical systems was yielding insights that mathematical analysis had missed entirely. Amy's students were learning to listen to the quantum field manipulator, recognizing the subtle changes in its crystal harmonics that indicated different operational modes. Within days, mechanics and engineers with no formal training in quantum physics were operating the devices more effectively than scientists with decades of theoretical knowledge. Amy's approach was spreading to research facilities around the world, creating a new field of intuitive quantum mechanics. In Tokyo, engineer Kenji Tanaka had established the first production line for human-improved alien technology. Working with Danny Chen's open-source designs and Amy's harmonic principles, Kenji's team was manufacturing devices that surpassed the original Kethvar technology, using nothing but common Earth materials. The exotic alien components had been replaced with everyday elements arranged in configurations that the quantum field manipulator made possible. Kenji's factory was producing hundreds of improved devices per day, and he was sharing the manufacturing techniques freely on the internet. Within a week, similar factories were being built in dozens of countries. The alien technology that the Kethvar had guarded for millions of years was becoming as common as smartphones, available to anyone who wanted to experiment with reality-bending tools. Dr. Kevin Park appeared on news programs around the world, trying to explain to reporters and government officials what was happening. Kevin emphasized that humans were not necessarily smarter than the HFY, just different in their approach to problem solving. The aliens saw a perfect device and worked to preserve it unchanged for future generations. Humans saw a perfect device and immediately began wondering what would happen if they painted racing stripes on it and added a turbo booster. This difference in perspective was creating exponential innovation as human research teams shared their discoveries with each other. Amy's mechanical insights were being combined with Maria's communication improvements. Danny's integration concepts were merging with Jake Morrison's structural modifications from the International Space Station. The result was technology that seemed to improve itself through use, becoming more powerful and versatile with each modification. The breakthrough that changed everything came when the various human teams began connecting their modified devices into larger networks. Instead of 3 separate tools, humanity was creating an integrated system that could reshape matter, transfer consciousness, and communicate across any distance simultaneously. But more importantly, they were making it simple enough for anyone to use. The Universal Constructor, as Dr. Lisa Bennett named it during a global press conference, could be operated by anyone with basic training. It could be built using common materials found in any electronics store. Most remarkably, it continued to improve and evolve as more people used it, learning from each user's modifications and automatically sharing improvements across the network. Ambassador Zeftal stood beside Lisa during the press conference, visibly struggling to process what humanity had accomplished. He addressed the cameras with a voice that trembled with harmonics of disbelief, admitting that in just 5 Earth days, humans had advanced HFY technology beyond what his people had achieved in millions of years of careful development. But the true revolution was just beginning. Danny Chen, still working in his garage in Vancouver, had been thinking about the philosophical implications of what humans were doing to alien technology. In his latest video blog, the teenager posed a question that would reshape understanding of physics itself. What if the alien devices were not manipulating matter and energy, but manipulating the rules that governed matter and energy? Danny's insight spread through the global research network like wildfire. If the quantum field manipulator could change the fundamental constants that determined how reality worked, then the device was not just a tool for reshaping matter, it was a tool for reshaping the universe itself. The consciousness transfer system was not just moving minds between bodies, it was editing the basic code that defined what consciousness meant. The communication array was not just sending messages across space and time, it was rewriting the laws that determined what was possible. Research teams around the world began testing Danny's theory, and within hours they were reporting results that defied everything scientists thought they knew about physics. Reality itself was becoming malleable, responsive to human creativity and imagination in ways that the original alien designers had never conceived. The HFY delegation requested emergency communications with their homeworld, but discovered that the human modifications had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic communication networks. Danny's garage-built improvements had created quantum pathways that connected not just different locations in space, but different versions of reality itself. The teenager was casually chatting with alternate versions of himself from parallel universes, comparing notes on their different approaches to alien technology modification. Ambassador Zeftal realized that the HFY had not just underestimated human intelligence. They had misunderstood the very nature of what intelligence could accomplish when freed from the constraints of perfectionist thinking and encouraged to play with the fundamental building blocks of existence. Danny Chen stood in his garage surrounded by what looked like the aftermath of a collision between a computer store and a modern art museum. Cables snaked across the floor in patterns that seemed to shift when nobody was looking directly at them. Crystal fragments from the alien devices had been mounted inside salvaged microwave ovens, their internal light pulsing in rhythms that matched human heartbeats. The metal flower petals of the communication array had been replaced with antenna arrays built from kitchen utensils and coat hangers, but somehow the jury-rigged system worked better than the original. Danny grinned at the camera as he prepared. To upload what would become the most viewed video in human history, the 16-year-old from Vancouver had been awake for 6 straight days, powered by curiosity and the growing realization that he was on the verge of something that would change everything. His latest modification to the alien technology looked like complete chaos, but appearances were deceiving. Danny explained to his global audience that everyone had been thinking about the alien devices wrong from the very beginning. The HFY had created 3 separate tools for manipulating matter, consciousness, and communication. Human scientists had focused on improving each device individually and then combining them into more powerful systems. But Danny had realized that all of this missed the fundamental point of what the technology actually was. The alien devices were not tools for changing things that already existed, Danny said. They were tools for changing the rules that determined what could exist in the first place. The quantum field manipulator was not reshaping matter. It was editing the mathematical constants that defined how matter behaved. The consciousness transfer device was not moving minds between bodies. It was rewriting the basic code that determined what consciousness meant. The communication array was not sending messages across space and time. It was modifying the fundamental structure of space and time itself. Danny's homemade system looked nothing like the elegant alien originals, but when he activated it, reality began to bend around him in ways that defied every law of physics that humans had ever discovered. Objects in his garage began changing color, texture, and even basic properties like mass and density. Danny picked up a steel wrench that had become lighter than air and flexible like rubber. He showed the camera how he could think a command and make gravity work sideways in one corner of the room. The implications of Danny's discovery spread through the global research network faster than light itself. Within hours, scientists around the world were replicating his work and discovering that the universe was far more malleable than anyone had ever imagined. Dr. Maria Santos, working with her team in São Paulo, found that the modified communication array could send information not just backwards through time, but sideways through time into alternate timelines where different versions of history had unfolded. Amy Rodriguez, now leading a team of quantum mechanics at NASA, discovered that the consciousness transfer device could do far more than merge multiple minds together. It could create collective intelligences that maintained individual personalities, while sharing knowledge and creativity across entire populations. Her experiments resulted in group minds that could solve problems that individual humans could never comprehend. Yet each person in the group retained their unique identity and personal memories. Jake Morrison, coordinating research from the International Space Station, used the quantum field manipulator to create pocket dimensions where the laws of physics could be customized for specific purposes. His team built laboratories where gravity could be adjusted like a thermostat, where time moved at different speeds in different rooms, and where matter could be programmed to behave in ways that would be impossible in normal space. The HFY delegation watched these developments with emotions that had no human equivalent. Ambassador Zeftal called an emergency meeting with world leaders, his silver-blue skin now permanently gray with what humans were beginning to recognize as a form of shell shock. The elegant alien who had arrived on Earth just 1 week earlier now seemed small and uncertain, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had witnessed. Zeftal addressed the assembled diplomats and scientists with a voice that carried harmonics of profound humility, mixed with something that might have been awe. He explained that the HFY had come to Earth expecting to evaluate humanity for membership in the Galactic Consortium, an alliance of advanced civilizations that shared technology and knowledge across the stars. Every member of the consortium had passed the same test, Zeftal said. They had demonstrated their worthiness by understanding and preserving the ancient technologies that held galactic civilization together. The test was designed to identify species that were ready to join the established order, to become junior partners in a system that had worked unchanged for millions of years. But humanity had done something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of seeking to understand and preserve the alien technology, humans had immediately begun modifying and improving it. Within days, they had advanced the technology beyond what the most ancient civilizations in the galaxy had achieved over millions of years of careful development. Dr. Lisa Bennett, now serving as humanity's primary representative to the galaxy, listened as Ambassador Zeftal continued his explanation. The alien diplomat described how the HFY and other consortium members approached technology as something to be mastered, controlled, and preserved unchanged across generations. They saw the universe as a complex puzzle to be solved through patience, careful study, and respect for established knowledge. Humans, Zeftal observed, treated technology as something to be played with, modified, and continuously improved. They did not seek to master the universe but to collaborate with it, treating reality itself as a creative partner in an ongoing project of mutual improvement. This approach was completely alien to every other species in the galaxy, and the results spoke for themselves. The ambassador's final words would be remembered as the moment when everything changed forever. Looking directly into the cameras broadcasting his speech around the world, Zeftal said that the HFY had not come to Earth to offer humanity membership in the Galactic Consortium. Instead, they had come to ask if the Galactic Consortium might be worthy of membership in humanity's universe. Outside the United Nations building, in garages and laboratories, coffee shops and college dormitories, millions of humans continued, doing what they did best. They took things that worked perfectly fine and asked the most human question of all: what if we made it better? Danny Chen uploaded another video from his garage, this time showing how to build a device that could edit the fundamental constants of mathematics itself. Amy Rodriguez published plans for a quantum field manipulator that could create new forms of matter that existed in more than 3 dimensions. Maria Santos shared designs for a communication system that could connect minds across multiple parallel universes simultaneously. The alien visitors had learned something profound about human nature. Human technology was not about building perfect devices that would last forever unchanged. Human technology was about building better humans, creating tools that enhanced human creativity and imagination, rather than replacing them. In a galaxy full of species that had mastered their tools, only humanity had learned to let their tools master them back, creating an endless cycle of mutual improvement that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The HFY had brought humanity 3 perfect technologies that represented the pinnacle of millions of years of careful development. Humanity gave them back 3 trillion imperfect technologies that worked better, cost less, and could be improved by anyone with curiosity and access to a garage. That, the aliens realized, was the most human thing of all, and perhaps the most valuable gift that any species could offer to the universe.